Good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Just want to make sure I'm loud enough. Is that a yes? Good? Yeah, perfect. All right. So before I begin, I just want to thank Network Center for putting on this absolutely amazing event and inviting us to be a part of it to talk to you about CoPilot today. So CoPilot is going to become an integral part of Microsoft's everyday life here. With technology reaching an inflection point, we are seeing AI become used on more of a day-to-day basis, whether it be free AI such as ChatGPT or the free version of Copilot, or even paid options kind of like Google Gemini or Microsoft Copilot for 365. So, as I mentioned, generative AI technology is here, and it's here to stay. So, this is one of my favorite slides, really, because let's look at things that are present in day-to-day life, such as the mobile phone. If everybody remembers who was around in the 90s, mobile phones used to be, a giant thing with a bag, right? That's how you got your signal. It took 16 years to get to 100 million users of a cell phone. And that's kind of crazy to think about since every single person has one, if not two today. I know I personally have two, one for work, one for personal use. Let's look at the internet. Once again, it's something we use day to day. It's necessary in everybody's life. It took 7 years to get to 100 million users. And Facebook, well, I don't know if we have 4.5 million Facebook users anymore. It's kind of on the downslope. But ChatGPT, when it released last year, at the end of the year, it only took 3 months to reach that 100 million user mark. Just goes to show that people are interested in AI. And I know I was one of those people on ChatGPT's release day, hitting the spam button, trying to get in and try and use it for the first time, but it kept locking me out. So the impact is real for AI. We've been living through this momentous platform shift for a couple of years now, everybody moving to a hybrid or fully remote work environment. And history has kind of taught us that technology really drives GDP growth, and that pace of change is starting to accelerate. Technology spend has grown faster than GDP for about the last decade, and historically, the GDP growth multiplier is about 4 times in the 1800s to over 20 times in the last century. And AI is going to be that next leg up in the world's economic growth. So last year, Microsoft introduced Copilot to enterprise-level customers, and it was strictly enterprise-level customers at first, people with Microsoft 365 E3 and Microsoft 365 E5. And what are some of the early things that we were finding and Microsoft was finding? Because I think one of the first thoughts was, oh my goodness, AI is going to take my job away. And I think I was one of those people, right? Like, oh my God, is my job really that important? Can AI just do my job? And that is what most people were fearful of. And about 50% of respondents had some concern about job security. 70% of people are still choosing to delegate as much work as possible to an AI tool to reduce their workload. So simply put, employees know what's in it for them, and it's to free up time in your day to have more time to be creative and collaborate more with other associates in the workplace. So with the platform shift to AI being well underway, and just as a lot of customers and people have turned to Microsoft to help make that shift to remote and flexible work, they're now turning to Microsoft to really help them understand the new era of AI and how it's going to change work again. And Microsoft has long relied on data to help understand where work is really going. And what they use is their annual work trend index. So this kind of provides productivity signals from the Microsoft graph and a lot of the labor market trends that LinkedIn uses. So what are we seeing from the work trend index? And that is that digital debt is costing companies a ton of innovation. And what is digital debt really? It's the fact that employees feel like you don't have enough time to do your job. We all know that we get endless email threads of hundreds of emails where we don't even know what the ask is, or meetings that just fill up our calendar where you're like, did I really need to be in this meeting? Could I have just gotten a summary from somebody else? And that is really the primary energy drain, those inefficient meetings and those email threads. And a lot of employees, about 60%, feel like they're spending too much time communicating and coordinating, where they don't have enough time for being creative and doing their actual job and what they're supposed to be doing. And that is really digital debt. So a recent study really showed that 87% of leaders believe AI are going to give their organization a competitive edge. And every leader is kind of beginning to ask themselves, how is my organization going to seize the full potential of AI? And how am I going to safeguard my business while doing so? Making sure that my data, my employees stay secure, and we don't accidentally get hacked or hack ourselves. So kind of just go through this one. And when you're preparing for AI, I think there's really 5 questions that every company needs to be asking themselves. First one being, what is your goal for using AI? What is your end goal? I feel like that's a very generalistic question, because you can say, oh, just free up time in my day. But you really kind of want to break down the second question, those pain points that you're having on a day-to-day basis. Whether it being, wow, I have 300 emails come in today. I've worked for 8 hours and I got through about 100 of them, which means I got 200 going into my next day. Oh, and I also had to have a presentation ready for one of my customers tomorrow. What are your current AI capabilities is going to be the third question. So how ready are you? What licensing do you have that is prepared to take on an AI license? And that kind of also goes into the fourth question, and is, do you have a data strategy in place? Because like that was spoken about this morning in the keynote, everything that AI has access to is what you are giving your employees permissions to have access to. So making sure that that data security is in place is extremely important prior to adding a CoPilot license into your environment. And that last question is, do you have the necessary infrastructure and resources to support AI? Do you have people who are there to implement AI into the environment? And I think that's where, if you don't have those users, you're going to be really utilizing people at Network Center to help you get that put into your environment. So becoming an AI-powered business really begins with taking 3 key steps towards foundational productivity. And you're going to want to start with those secure AI-powered tools like Microsoft Copilot for 365 and Microsoft Copilot, which was formerly known as Bing Chat Enterprise, if you knew it as that, with your commercial data protection. Learning how to use Copilot in the workplace today is important to get started with generative AI in being secure. And the skill development around using AI in the workplace is going to be critical to get users to quickly adapt and quickly adopt Copilot for Microsoft 365. And really focusing on what matters is that Copilot is going to free up time from the tools and repetitive tasks so you can spend more time on what matters most, like running your day-to-day business, growing your customers, building your brand, and making sure that you scale securely. And this means you're going to be able to serve your customers better with Outlook. You're going to be able to land more deals, grow your customer base, and be able to build your brand more creatively and effectively with your Microsoft tools that you're already used to, like Word and PowerPoint. And I know I'm not an Excel whiz, but you're going to be able to do more with Excel in a faster period of time, especially if you don't know all the functionality of Excel. So Copilot is actually embedded in all of these applications when you purchase a Copilot for Microsoft 365 license. You're going to get a little Copilot button right in the application. And you can open it up and ask it, what can you ask it to do, right? And we're kind of going to go through all of the different applications and what Microsoft Copilot can do in these applications in more detail. But just as a quick snippet, like being able to generate first drafts in Word, being able to generate a sheet based off of data in Excel, being able to take a document from Word, put it into PowerPoint, and build an entire presentation within a minute. Outlook, taking those 100 email threads and having it quickly summarize it in under a minute. And Teams is going to be one of the big ones because, like I said, we all go to those meetings where we feel like, did I really need to be there? And Copilot can summarize that entire meeting for you without even attending. So kind of what is the technology behind Copilot? And the first thing that we're going to look at here is the difference between the graph and the semantic index. And this is where it's going to get a little bit more technical, but I'm kind of going to keep it high level because I don't want to spend 3 hours talking about the graph and semantic index. So what is the Microsoft graph? This is how I like to explain it as just your data. So these are your chats and Teams, your emails, your files that are saved on OneDrive. This is what Copilot is going to use to generate content in things like Word and PowerPoint. So you can reference all of your data from one place and use it in all of the other applications. So this is one of the starting points of Copilot and how Copilot is going to work and gather all of the data. So what is the semantic index? The semantic index sits on top of the Microsoft graph, and this is what powers the search functionality in Copilot. So it's going to use AI and natural language processing to understand the meaning behind the words in your search queries, allowing for more effective and efficient search results. The semantic index is really able to recognize things like synonyms, related concepts, and other factors that can help refine your search results, making it easier to find the information that you need. So, for example, when you ask Copilot about a March or April sales report, it can find the right document based on who created it, what format it's in, and how it relates to your work. So the Copilot Semantic Index is also going to respect your security and privacy settings, so it is only going to find data that you have access to. So as we spoke about earlier, right, like if you have Copilot and you have access to everything in an environment, I can look up Mike's pay structure, and that's not what you want to do. And the semantic index is going to respect the permissions that you have, and that is extremely important. But what is the technology behind the semantic index, really? And if you find out, please let me know, because Microsoft's keeping that under lock and key. I think the main thing here, and kind of what we've all come accustomed to, is that it's alien technology, and that's why they're not telling anybody what it is. So what are the different Copilot options here? So we have Copilot for individuals. So we have your free version of Copilot. This is your search functionality. This is going to be like your ChatGPT, where you can go to copilot.com, ask it some questions. It's going to pull data from the internet, and that's how you're going to get your answers. Copilot Pro. We get a lot of questions on Copilot Pro and what the difference between this and Copilot for Microsoft 365 is. So Copilot Pro is for the users who have things like Microsoft Home and Family, Microsoft, your one-time purchase-based Microsoft license. So where's this going to pull data from? It's only going to be able to pull data from that one user. So you're not going to get that experience of being able to pull all of the data from OneDrive or Excel or Teams, because it doesn't really have access to those things, and you don't have access to those things when you have a Microsoft Home and Family license. So Copilot for Microsoft 365 is going to be that big picture license for most companies that have a Microsoft environment and a Microsoft tenant. When you have all of your users licensed with your Microsoft licensing, Business Standard, Business Premium, things like that, it's going to collect your data And CoPilot for 365 is going to be able to pull from that. All right, so it looks like we do have a missing slide here. So before I get into Teams meetings, I kind of want to go over this. So there is a basic architecture to how CoPilot works. And I had a nice little map, so imagine a nice little map with some arrows here, showing where the data goes and how it comes back to you. So the way it really works is that it starts out from the application. So let's say you're using Microsoft Word and you're saying, hey, can you generate a rough draft of a instruction guide based off of the data I have in this file? The way it works is that Microsoft is going to go into the Microsoft Graph. It's going to find that file that you're referencing with that information. It's going to take it through the semantic index, send it to the large language model, bring it back to the graph, and bring it back to you. So the super important thing about this and keeping data secure is that Microsoft will never use your data to train the large language model. Similar to ChatGPT, when you put data into ChatGPT, you are training that large language model. That's why a lot of authors who were using ChatGPT to spell check or make sure their grammar was correct, and they were putting their chapters from their book into ChatGPT, ChatGPT can actually claim that. It is using that data to train the model, and CoPilot does not do that. It is keeping your data secure. So let's get into CoPilot for Teams meetings. So let's imagine that you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. The amazing thing here is that what if you could still attend both? With CoPilot, you can opt in to follow a meeting. And after the meeting ends, CoPilot is going to be able to summarize what you missed. You're going to get a notification in Teams when the recap's ready. And the recap will highlight content that was shared, summarize notes, and any action items for you and whose names were actually mentioned. So you're going to be able to get the data from who said what. It's not going to be like a telephone game where you ask Mike who joined the meeting in another meeting and, hey, what happened? And he tells you something completely incorrect. You do the wrong work for 2 days and you're getting yelled at by your boss. So you'll be able to see what your customers discussed. And if you want to learn more, you can actually ask CoPilot for clarifying questions based off of that summary. It's going to be able to provide a completely detailed response and tell you why certain decisions were made in this meeting. And it's actually going to give you helpful context behind it as well. So you can even ask CoPilot what other solutions were even being considered. And it provides those citations from the transcript so you can see where CoPilot drew those conclusions. And I kind of want to get into a video, and I want to ask production, are you able to actually play the video on this slide?
On this one or the next one? It doesn't appear that I have a video that I can... Oh. No, I just went to the next slide.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we're not going to get the presentations on the videos. So I had a little bit of a presentation for how it works inside each application. But let's talk about intelligent recap, which is kind of like what I was just going into. So the intelligent recap experience is going to be a great way to get started because it's built in and it's going to be automated for all users. It provides a familiar and standardized experience, and it's going to segment your recordings with video timeline markers, and it's available after the meeting. So you get to watch a full video of the meeting with that information. CoPilot can really expand and respond on intelligent recap with the ability to ask any question about the meeting. And CoPilot, on the other hand, is on demand. So it's based on each user's unique question or prompt, uses a conversational user interface, and it's available both during and after the meeting. So even if you join the meeting 15 minutes late, hey, CoPilot, quickly catch me up on where I'm at right now, because I have no idea what's going on in this conversation. And IR is included today in Teams Premium, and it's actually going to be part of the Microsoft Copilot for 365 license in the future. So let's talk a little bit about CoPilot in Outlook. So starting soon in CoPilot for Outlook, you can actually follow Teams meetings that you're unable to attend right from your Outlook application. So when the meeting starts, Teams is going to notify the organizer to record it, and when that recording is ready, CoPilot notifies you that that meeting recap is ready for viewing. So what is the big thing about Outlook, though? Number one, my favorite feature of CoPilot in general, and as I've talked about already, we get email threads every day that are 30 emails long. You go through it, and you have no idea what the ask is. You try to figure it out. You've already used up 20 minutes of your time. Well, guess what? I'm just going to use CoPilot to summarize it real quick. And it's going to tell me the key points and who the ask is for and what customer it's for. Cool. I just took 20 minutes of my day and made it 30 seconds. And I can actually draft an email response based on that summary using CoPilot. So we get that summary. Okay, CoPilot, can you generate a first draft response on answering this question? I can't think of a good example right away. That is one of my favorite features. And you can also use CoPilot to generate responses in a different way. It is a learning tool. It's going to learn to speak in your tone of voice. It's going to learn how you answer emails. So let's say a boss is trying to tell an employee, hey, you haven't finished this report yet. This is extremely important. Get it to me as soon as possible. But guess what? It's a couple weeks overdue, so you want to be a little bit more strict about it. Hey, CoPilot, say it with a little bit more intensity. Well, it's going to do that for you. Sometimes it goes a little overboard. I will admit that. But guess what? You can just roll it back, change it, and have it in any tone that you want it. You can have it be funny. You can have it be lighthearted. All those happy birthday emails, CoPilot, shoot me out a happy birthday email to this teammate because I don't want to take the time to do it. So CoPilot in Microsoft Word. With CoPilot in Word, it's going to really transform every part of your creativity process. And it's actually going to have designer integration in Word very soon as well, where you can effortlessly incorporate your custom graphics into your document. CoPilot is going to use the context of your content and propose visuals in chats, and you're able to upload and customize your own images for even a more personal touch. And like I said, with Microsoft Word, you are able to generate those first drafts of documents, such as, writing a script for a play, writing an instruction manual for a product that you're trying to sell. The main one that we always use is a new electric bike, right? And we have the data on the electric bike, and we can import that data right into Microsoft Word and have it build a coherent 10-page instruction manual on how to set this bike up, how to use it, when charging is necessary, and it's using all that data to create that information for you. I do want to stress this. Never use CoPilot to do the work for you. I should have started with that, to be completely honest. But when you generate that first draft, you have to go through it. It's going to have incorrect data in there sometimes. Like, it's going to mix words. It's going to have things that maybe aren't the way you want them to be worded. So you always have to be there to make sure that what CoPilot is doing is the correct way, and it's doing it the right way. It is called CoPilot for a reason. It's there to help you. It's not there to do your job. So let's talk a little bit about CoPilot in Excel. We all know Excel is, it's Excel. It is a very deep program with so many tools and features that, I can't even get through half of them, right? So let's say you need to analyze a quarter sales results for your monthly business review. You start by asking CoPilot to analyze the data that you have, and you give it 3 key trends. And within seconds, you're going to have exactly what you need. But let's say you want to drill into it a little bit more. You ask CoPilot a follow-up question about one of the trends. CoPilot's actually going to create a brand new sheet, giving you a sandbox to play in and helping you better understand what's happening about modifying the data in that original sheet. CoPilot is really going to help you level up your skill set in breaking down the problems in steps that are step by step. And let's say you also ask CoPilot to visualize what contributed to the decline of sales growth in this period. CoPilot's going to add a little bit of color to make the problem really pop and make you understand it right in front of your eyes. And let's say you want to dig even deeper and ask a follow-up question about a what-if scenario. CoPilot is not only going to answer that question, it's going to actually create a model of that scenario with a graph. And even if you want to ask more questions about what it did, it's going to give you that step-by-step breakdown of how it got to where it did. And finally, you can actually ask it to make a graph of your projected model. CoPilot turned a sea of data into clear insights and actions, which, I mean, to be fair, when I first used Excel, I had no idea how to even use a pivot table. So, and I'm sure that is one of the first things most people learn in Excel. So finally, let's talk about CoPilot Lab. CoPilot Lab is not a Microsoft application per se. It is a website that Microsoft has that is going to get you the best out of prompting. So if you are using CoPilot, let's say your prompts are a little bit vague. CoPilot is going to go off of what you prompted it to do. CoPilot Lab has a set amount of prompts that you can really get started with in using CoPilot. So if you are really new to CoPilot and you're asking Excel to do this one thing and it's just not doing it for you, well, guess what? You can actually go to CoPilot Lab, go buy the application, so look up Excel prompts, and maybe that prompt will be in there for you, or it's going to give you maybe a pre-step that you missed to get to the point where you want to be. CoPilot Lab is extremely important because prompting is the most important part of CoPilot. You need to make sure that you are asking it to do the right thing or it's not going to do it for you. And this website is free for everybody. So whenever you're ready to get to CoPilot, when you get your first CoPilot licenses, play around in CoPilot Lab. And I always say this too. CoPilot is one of those applications and tools that you have that's meant to try and be broken. Try and break it. Like, ask it to do things that are just outrageous. It's not going to do it sometimes, but it is learning, and it will eventually get to that point. All right, well, we can't watch that video. But let's talk about CoPilot security and privacy. So recently, well, not recently really, a couple months ago, Microsoft opened up CoPilot to be used with any Microsoft suite. So previously, it was just your Business Premium, ME3, and ME5. They recently opened it up to work with Business Basic, Business Standard, all your O licenses, and everything. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing to do, but that option is there to be utilized. So kind of showing right here, like what you get with CoPilot and Business Standard, you're going to get your MFA tool. You're going to get your basic content and keyword searches and your device-based access. But what are you going to get with Business Premium? And it's two features here that I really, really want to point out. One of it is conditional access. That is one of the things that you need to give to each user where it's assigning the permissions that they have and what data that they can access. So Business Premium is going to give you that tool to assign the conditional access policies to the users who are going to have CoPilot. And to be fair, it should be assigned to every user in the company, but especially to the users who have CoPilot. The next thing is the e-discovery, litigation, and retention policies. Data retention. That is going to make sure that if somebody does do something or break something, you are able to get that data back, roll it back. It is extremely important. So let's look at it at an enterprise level. So CoPilot with your OE3, your ME3, and your ME5. You're going to have sensitivity levels with OE3, but once again, when you move into ME3, you're going to get your conditional access policies. Like I said, this is an extremely important tool prior to having CoPilot. And with Microsoft 365, you're going to get automatic sensitivity labels. for non-Microsoft documents. So it's not just things that you have in your OneDrive, it's all of your documents in general. So you're going to get more access to files even outside of the Microsoft environment that are still going to be protected by your Microsoft 365 E5 license. So let's talk a little bit about Microsoft's AI principles. Microsoft believes that the development and deployment of AI needs to be guided by the creation and ethical framework. Microsoft has 6 core principles that should really guide the work around AI. 4 of the core principles being fairness, reliability and safety, privacy and security, and inclusiveness. These are all going to be underpinned by 2 foundational principles being transparency and accountability. With the first principle being fairness, this means that your AI system should treat everyone fairly and avoid affecting similarly situated groups of people in different ways. With reliability and safety, it's there to build trust. It's also important that AI systems operate reliably, safely, and consistently under normal circumstances and in unexpected conditions. It's also crucial to develop AI systems that can protect private information and resist attacks. And for the 1 billion people with disabilities around the world, AI technologies can be a game changer. Their inclusive design practices can help system developers understand and address potential barriers in a product environment that could unintentionally exclude certain people. And improving intelligibility requires that stakeholders comprehend how and why AI systems function so that they can identify potential performance issues, safety and privacy concerns, biases, exclusionary practices, or unintended outcomes. And with the final principle being accountability, Microsoft believes that people who design and deploy AI systems must be accountable for how their systems operate. Data is the fuel that powers AI technology, and you need to trust what your technology partners are doing with your data. First, your data is your data. That means it's yours to own and control, your data to choose how you want to leverage and how you want to monetize it. Your data is, like I said earlier, your data is not used to train or enrich the foundational AI models used by others without your permission. So you don't have to worry about anyone other than your organization benefiting from your data used by the AI. And your data and AI models are going to be protected at every step by the most comprehensive enterprise compliance and security controls in the industry with things like Business Premium and Microsoft 365 E5. So without the videos, we got through that a little bit quicker than we expected, but that is everything that I have today on Microsoft Copilot. We are open to a Q&A where I do have Ken who's going to come up, so if anybody has any questions, please ask myself and Ken, and we are more than happy to help you. Thank you very much.
Scarier up here.
So I've used CoPilot at work in certain scenarios, and you mentioned, you have to have a first draft, right? So if it's collectively grabbing all this stuff internally, how are you not just kind of resurfacing the same information over and over again? You need a creator, right?
Yeah, so you could even put information into Copilot and it will not necessarily present you with the same information if you ask it the same thing over again. And that's also getting into prompting and learning how to become what Microsoft would say prompting like a pro to ensure that you're getting the results that you do want. So if it is something where you're putting in information, then you put it in again, which I think is the question you're asking, sometimes the prompt is really how you're getting to where you want to be with the information that you're providing to Copilot. Am I answering your question correctly? If not, we'll always have by our booth. We're going to go a little bit more in depth, and I also want to say some of the videos that Chris wanted to show, we're going to have at our booth to be able to go a little bit more in depth.
But I think you were asking about drafting in Word, right? And you're saying that it needs to pull from something. So it needs to pull from another draft, essentially, is what you're saying?
Yeah, like as a copywriter, you need
Oh, understood.
You need the beginning to start somewhere, right? Or
Yeah,
as
so-
a creator.
Technically, you can have it make a first draft of anything because it can pull information from the internet. So you can technically say, hey, CoPilot, make me a draft and write me a paper on a 1967 Chevy Corvette. It's going to pull that information from the internet because you don't have any data in your tenant about that, right? You can have it pull from different places. So essentially, when you're writing those Word documents and you're trying to pull data from other places, what is the first draft that you're kind of thinking of? So like, you can even say, hey, CoPilot, write me a first draft of a play talking about a queen becoming a dragon rider, something like that, something crazy, right? And it's gonna do that. It's just gonna kind of generate something for you. It might not be what you're looking for, but it's able to do that. It technically doesn't need to pull from data. So if you're trying to do it as a creative thing, you can have it generate that information on its own. But if you need it to go based off of other data, you can have it pull from another Word document, an Excel file, a PowerPoint presentation, or random files that you have in OneDrive or an email, and it can actually create something based off of that information as well.
And yeah, to Chris's point, we can be grounded in our M365 tenant, or then pull from the internet and be grounded there to realize the information that we're looking to get. So, great question. We could get a little bit more in depth at our booth. Any other question? I see a hand over here. Yes.
We're in the auction industry, and we have a division that is in equipment, and our guys physically go out to site, and they write down everything, and they have to go around the whole vehicle, let's just say, if it's a car, like you were mentioning. Is there a way that if that individual like sees, oh, it's a 2007, oh, jeez. Hi, is it on? This is really quiet. I can talk loud. I'm loud. So if they were to just look at the VIN and then what year it is and the make model, is there a way you can ask CoPilot, please draft me up a write-up all about this vehicle just based on the year, make, model, and serial number? Because right now they go through it and they go 2 doors, all-wheel drive, transmission's this, you know, so.
That's a good question. It's not something I've tested before, but what I would recommend is get with one of your network center reps, because we can actually do demos for CoPilot. That's something we can actually try out for you.
Okay.
So if you want us to be able to, look up a random VIN number and be able to try and write a document off of it, sure. I don't know 100%. I mean, I think if you type a VIN number into Google, it tells you what vehicle it is, I believe.
Yeah,
So-
and that tells you too what year it is if we didn't know the year exactly.
Yeah, so it may be able to pull it from internet data and be able to give you a write-up on the vehicle. It may need to take a couple of steps, and like I said, it's all about prompting. So you may need to ask it for a couple of initial questions first to get to that point, but that's definitely something I think, once again, I think we need to play with it and see if it can do it, because that's a great question.
Can I piggyback off that too?
Yes, please.
So, and then we have a land division where we have a template for write-ups, but then that same template, we just plug in the new information for whatever property we're trying to sell. Acreage, county, taxes, legals, etc. Is there a way you can send in the template that we previously had constructed and then attach any of the important information we got from like the county, etc.? Is there a way that it will then plug in, this is how many acres are in this parcel number, taxes, and so on? So that's what takes a lot of our time, is handwriting all these and plugging stuff in, and then we sometimes to forget in the template, oh, it's this county, not this county, and we have errors because we're both working off a template.
So you can pull data off a template and have, for instance, in the tech world, we're using a lot of SOW. So you could use CoPilot to then make a service of work and templatize that. And I think to your point, really trying to build that out so that you're saving yourself some time, reviewing it to ensure that it is getting some of the data that you're looking for. Because CoPilot is, again, to Chris's point, not going to do all of your work. However, it's going to simplify make that generate it for you to review and ensure that you're getting everything correctly, and then maybe freeing up a little bit more time for you to actually review it.
Thank you.
So you said earlier that you can only pull data you have access to. How do you ensure, like my boss and the HR director having a conversation talking about my salary, and employee XYZ going, what do I make, and having access to that document? Because maybe there's an Excel document out there that AI doesn't know you're not supposed to have access to, but it's got your name in it. So how does it ensure that it's not pulling any information regardless of whether or not you have rights to it?
So essentially, Microsoft and how you're actually pulling data. You're talking about at that point some of the data governance pieces within the Microsoft tenant. So if you do have the conversation, and then someone is then trying to look and say, hey, what does Joe make for his salary? If they already had access to that information, CoPilot would be able to pull from there. That's why we want to make sure that we have all the governance in place to not, quote unquote, hack ourselves. So conversations that you're having, we want to make sure that we have the correct people always in place to ensure that, and by people in place, we have the correct role-based access so that we are not oversharing information to ensure that we're not getting into those situations.
And just to add on to that, it's extremely important to make sure that you're managing your tenant that way. So if you do not have those data governance pieces in place where you're not sure if somebody has access to a file that they're not supposed to have access to, it's really important to sit down with somebody and go through your tenant to make sure everything is in place correctly and everybody has access to what they're supposed to have access to. So that is getting with somebody from Network Center, working with maybe your rep, and saying, hey, I just want to go through, make sure my tenant is in a good place to start introducing AI, because those are the first steps to bringing AI into an environment, making sure everybody has access to the correct files and what they're supposed to, because like you said, there could be an Excel file randomly out there that has somebody's pay information on it that I don't even know this employee has access to it. And it's going
It could be sitting in a Teams
exactly.
file somewhere unknown to everybody.
Exactly. And there are processes out there and ways of going into a tenant and making sure everybody has access to the correct information and going through those files. It's a process, but it is there for a reason.
And I think ultimately it's one of those items where that's where we're looking a lot of times, especially with our smaller mid-market businesses, that we're creating a POC, a proof of concept, with a smaller group before we're releasing out CoPilot to an entire organization to ensure that we have those practices in place to ensure we're getting the outcomes that we are looking and intended to have with this powerful tool. We have about a minute before we are going back, but I want to ask a genuine question. So who is, when they heard AI, who is a little bit scared of it? Okay. And then my follow-up question, and what I would like to leave everyone with is, after you're learning about generative AI, CoPilot, who's scared that they might be missing out on something because they were a little bit too nervous to really dive into something that seemed like it was a little too scary? Because I know for myself, it's not always easy when you're embarking on something new to just dive right in. And I think that skepticism is healthy, but it's ensuring that you're working with your partners, and working with Network Center to ensure that we're setting ourselves up for the best scenario possible. Because I could even think when I was starting college, I was like, when am I going to use email? I'll just write the letter how I always did. But now I can't live. I don't work. I don't have a job unless I'm using email. So now we're getting to this point where it's like, well, I don't know. Why am I going to use AI? I already have a process in place. I don't want to be left behind. I'm sure everyone else here would also like to make sure that they're at the forefront of this powerful technology, but ensuring that they're doing it in a responsible way and they're setting themselves up for success without really setting themselves up to be susceptible to some items that we're all concerned about. I want to thank everyone for their time coming and listening to Chris and myself speak. We don't always get an opportunity to meet with end customers, and this is reinvigorating, refreshing for myself. We'd love to see you all at our booth, have deeper discussions, and ultimately see how we could partner with all of you to get some of these projects going with Network Center. Thank you very much.